Lately, I've been seeing a lot of videos circulating around the internet seemingly complaining about Taiwan, talking about how it's only full of factories, or how it's not outdoorsy enough, or how it's not diverse enough, or things that literally no one complains about. These videos make it seem like they're gonna complain about Taiwan, but then blow so much smoke up this country's ass it would make the air quality jealous. Now, to be clear, I do live in Taiwan and continue to love living here and trying new things like this delicious strawberry drink I just got. It's really good. I'm packed with so much sugar, I'm probably not gonna sleep until like next January. It's also, by the way, almost 600 calories. Falling down a flight of stairs is healthier than drinking one of these. I love learning about the language and how they hilariously directly translate things into Chinese, like cleavage is breast dish, or diabetes. Nothing funny about that until you realize they call it literally sugar piss disease. That's just funny. You see, I'm not here to compliment Taiwan or to inflate anyone's egos because I'm a cunt. I'm here to do my favorite thing, which is to complain. And complain about things that even probably Taiwanese people would agree with. And so you can let me know as you watch the video in the comments, do you agree with me or are you just wrong? One of the first things I see mentioned in these videos is just how beautiful Taiwan is. And that's true. It's got tall mountains, gorgeous coastline. It's like a Ferrari. Timeless, stunning. You could look at it for hours until you walk into the cities and you realize someone took that Ferrari and crashed it into the ugliest thing you could imagine. That's right, Taiwanese cities look like dog shit. They look old and tired, or like they're gonna fall over at any second, like me. Even the new infrastructure that they build, like Taichung's very own first MRT line, they decided to paint that baby shit green, I'm guessing to match the color of the air. And it's not like they can't build beautiful things. If you look at their temples, they're amazing. They're so full of beautiful paintings and sculptures. They're great for photography. It's hard to believe the same people that built those temples are the same ones that built those buildings that the Chinese won't even be able to tell if they've bombed yet.
I guess if I wanted to be more positive, I could say that there is some sort of a rough around the edges charm to the neighborhoods here, if you can get past the prison bars on the window and the accumulation of dust and grime. And it doesn't matter because we all know that what's important is on the inside.
Which also looks like shit. My apartment is probably around 15 years old and the decor is like triple that. This light fixture is disgusting. It makes me feel like I should be smoking a cigarette while I rub asbestos into a baby's face. But I guess I consider myself lucky that I actually have decor. You see, my biggest issue with interiors here in Taiwan is just how uncomfortable they are. The walls are painted white, the tiles are white, the ceiling is white. It makes you feel like you're in a fucking insane asylum. Also, instead of having a nice comfy sofa like the one I've got here, they'll swap that out for like a park bench, just a wooden sofa. Now I understand why they do that. A lot of people believe that it's better for your back, so that's why they have hard beds, hard sofas. And you know, Taiwan is a ridiculously hot and humid place, and we'll get to that later in the video. They're not gonna put carpet in their apartment or a nice plush leather sofa because all of that humidity would gather mold and it would be so hot in here you would get heat stroke just from sitting down, just like your mom. Now looking at all that ugliness can give you a headache, but it's no problem. We'll head into bed, close our eyes, and that's when it'll lead us into my second complaint about Taiwan. It's fucking loud. Now, no wonder. Taiwan is very compact. So cars make sound, ambulances, police cars, obviously. Even the garbage trucks make noise here. But what really pisses me off is the obnoxious, needless noise. So what happens is every young Taiwanese kids get their license to drive their scooter, and the first thing they do is rip off the stock exhaust and put on the loudest, most obnoxious exhaust you've ever heard in your life. It's so annoying and it wakes me up every single night. And I know I sound like an old man, but like an old man, I've developed taste, and I can tell the difference between a scooter that sounds great and a scooter that is screaming at the top of its lungs, barely able to breathe, just like your mom. But what's worse is that that same kid gets older and daddy buys him a new Mercedes. And what does he do? The same thing he did to the scooter. Rip off the stop exhaust and stick on a really loud muffler.
Oh, actually, never mind. Whoever owns this car, never mind. That's actually very well done. That's sick.
And what's really annoying is that there are teams and teams of highly paid, well-educated engineers who built the perfect exhaust to match that exact car so that the car performs exactly how they intended it. And you thought with your stupid brain that this exhaust that you put on is gonna make it better? It sounds awful. It's loud and it keeps everyone up Just like your mom last night after I've seriously had entire conversations interrupted by someone driving the loudest scooter or car you've ever heard in your life.
But it's okay because we can even the scoreboard by making our own noise.
So this is a KTV, or karaoke as it's known around the world, and I fucking hate it! It's the fucking worst. It makes you want to die. I said at the beginning of this video that I'm a cunt, and that's true. Most forms of self-expression piss me off, like dancing, poetry, painting, and the most egregious of all, singing. I don't know what it is, but singing in public makes me want to throw myself off the top of a building. Abroad in Japan, Chris, he made the exact same thing in his 12 things he hates about Japan, and he also talked about karaoke, and I hate it too. It wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't Taiwanese people's favorite thing to do. They all love it. There is a running theory that Alan has where Taiwanese people don't really like drinking in public or in bars all that often. They prefer to have their own rooms like we have here where they can drink and eat. And this place does actually come with a dinner I wasn't expecting to be that good.
Hello?
We're normally not here for dinner. We're usually here quite late at night after drinking a little bit too much.
Be careful, you almost said something positive about KTV.
That is actually one of my worst nightmares, is a bunch of people shoving microphones and tambourines and other annoying things in my face, wanting me to sing. It's so annoying because I hate it and it makes me so uncomfortable.
I'm all out of love, got nothing with
This is the worst! Now in Chris's video from abroad in Japan, he mentioned the toilets in Japan. They sing classical music to you, which they don't do here in Taiwan. The garbage trucks do, naturally, of course.
I'm Cozy, are you there? I really need toilet. Are you poo-poo?
What? No, what the? The thing I hate about bathrooms here in Taiwan is the lack of privacy. For whatever reason, Taiwanese people are incredibly open about what they do and what goes on in the bathroom. Whereas in the West, like where I'm from, what happens in the bathroom is more of a private affair. You don't talk to people while they're in the bathroom. You don't ask them how it was. I've had a lot of incidences of people knocking on the door, asking them if I'm okay, or just waiting around the general bathroom area, making me feel incredibly uncomfortable. It's not uncommon for people to come home and just go, "Mom, I'm home, I'm taking a shit." It's like, you don't need to tell me that. There's nothing that ruins a beautiful Taiwanese girl more than her explaining to you the absolute war she just had in the bathroom. But you know what, sometimes that's okay when someone asks if you're all right in the bathroom, because you will be spending a lot of time over this toilet after having a little bit too much to drink, which is the next thing I hate about living in Taiwan, the nightlife.
There isn't any, which is why I'm filming this in the daytime. That's an over exaggeration. Obviously, there is some nightlife here. It's just that it's been described as lackluster, underwhelming. There are obviously clubs and things like that if you're into that, if you like dancing and that type of music, and there are a few bars and things you can check out. The issue comes down to zoning laws, which there kind of aren't any here in Taiwan. And so what'll end up happening is that they'll just open a bar under a residential building, which means that they'll be absolutely overwhelmed with noise complaints. And so bars have to be really careful with that lest they get, the police called on them. And also Taiwanese people don't really drink as much as other Asian countries do. They still do drink, but I find them to be a lot more health conscious. I think that when a lot of people come here for nightlife, they're expecting something like Korea and Japan, where they'll have a whole neighborhood, a whole sector of the city that's I've got izakayas in the basement down over here and a club up on the top floor over there, and it's just the whole street is full of people partying and having a good time. That's not Taiwan. A lot of the bars are very spread out, and so if you want to go from one bar to the next, you're going to have to take a taxi across the city. Businesses open and close rather frequently here, and that includes bars, and so what ends up happening is a bar might open near a bunch of people who live there, especially old people, and so they just constantly call the police and the bar has to shut down. You don't really have that issue in a place like England, where a pub might be sitting there for 400 years, and so you know what you're getting into if you move around there, and no one's really going to complain about it because that just comes with the territory. But here in Taiwan, you could have one building with a bushiban, a bar, an apartment complex, a tea shop, all in the same area, and so there's just not an area designated for it. And so a lot of people, when they come here, aren't all excited about the nightlife. It's considered a bit lame, which isn't a big deal to me because I don't really drink anymore, but my friends do, and so we still end up finding ourselves in pubs now and again.
And so really the only nightlife you'll be doing here in Taiwan is in bed. Fucking kidding me!
I'm walking along here in Taichung City on something that's quite rare. I wanted to show you a sidewalk. Sidewalks are unbelievably rare here outside of Taipei. In Taipei, they do a pretty good job. A lot of the places have sidewalks, and they're covered, like this one is, because it rains so much. But here in Taichung, well, most of the sidewalks are either blocked, they just don't exist. And so that means you're forced to walk out on the street or very close to traffic. And if I had a child, I don't know how I would keep it out of harm's way with all the cars going by and the asbestos I'd be feeding it. But it's one of the most infuriating parts of living here, especially for people with families. And there are articles online talking about how it's ridiculous to see whole kindergartens going out for field trips and the kids have to hold up onto a rope and they're like inches away from getting hit by a car. It's just ridiculous. The infrastructure here simply didn't really have, I don't know, I guess bigger cars in mind. I can totally imagine if someone wasn't used to Taiwan, or maybe they weren't all that there, or they just didn't have their coffee in the morning, or if they're a child, or they just don't have the spatial awareness. I could totally see them walking out onto a road without actually realizing that cars are going by, because there's just nowhere for me to know where to walk and where not to walk. Taiwan is known as a pedestrian's hell for a reason.
This is a children's toy I bought, and it's a cactus that sings about the devil's dandruff in Polish. That's not a joke. Have a listen. It's actually pretty weird.
What the hell did you just say to me?
What the hell?
Come on, fat ass, don't be a pussy. You wanna fight?
I just said it was weird. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, and you think I'm gonna let the Chinese spy balloon insult me?
What? Ouch.
Hey man, you, I'm calling the police.
You can't call the police just 'cause... What the That's right, my next complaint about Taiwan is the judicial system, or at least some of it, particularly defamation laws, which this little dickhead just tried to sue me for. See, in most countries, saying mean things to someone isn't allowed. They can sue you for it in a civil court. Now, normally a judge will just throw it out because, let's be honest, you'd have to be pretty petty and bitter and just an overall pretty awful person to do that, you know, to sue someone for saying a mean thing. Anyways, the point is, in most countries, it goes to a civil court of law, right? It's not gonna go to a criminal court because that's for things like murders, rape, your mom. Can you imagine if every single defamation case went to the criminal court? That means they have to hear it. That would be crazy. That would be like Taiwan. Yeah, that's right. Here in Taiwan, defamation, or libel as it's also known, is a criminal offense. And for a country that's touted as being like the bastion of freedom and democracy, that's just ridiculous. I actually feel terrible for all of the judges that are sat in a criminal court listening to two people bicker back and forth about what they called each other. It can obviously lead to some pretty crazy cases, like this woman who complained online that a restaurant she went to had cockroaches, and the restaurant successfully sued that woman for defamation, even though that what she said was true. There were actually cockroaches in that restaurant. And that means that if you're coming to Taiwan, I recommend it, it's a great place, be extremely careful about what you say here, because you can end up in a lot of trouble for saying the wrong thing. Tied to defamation is actually one of these I got right here. Yeah, flipping someone the bird is illegal here in Taiwan, so don't do that either. And you might be wondering, Prazi, how do you know so much about this? Well, yeah, he wasn't the first one.
You're surprising no one.
Shut up. So you come to Taiwan, you have to hire a lawyer because you got sued by a talking cactus. And that's not cheap, which is the next thing I hate about living in Taiwan, is that it's expensive. Now yes, it is still cheaper than most Western countries, but it's just not as cheap as it used to be, or at least it's not as cheap as people make it out to be. I'm even guilty of this. In one of my recent videos, I called Taiwan inexpensive to live in, and that's still true when you're talking about things that are immediately available to you, like public transportation, food, your mom. I'll stop. I gotta stop. Probably. Or things like, you know, cheap drinks that I've got here. I'm addicted to these things. But where it gets expensive is things like housing, cars, major purchases like that. The average cost of a house here in Taiwan is $820,000 US. In Taipei, it's even more than that, $950,000. That's the average. And remember what I said at the beginning of the video, it's not like you're getting a big old house that's all up to date with lots of room and yards. You get a building that looks like it's gonna fall over. Cars and motorcycles are subjected to import tax if they come from other places, which is most of them, and so you're paying a lot more money for a car or a motorcycle here than you otherwise would. That's why a lot of people here drive scooters, because they're a lot more affordable. I really want to talk to young people here in Taiwan about how they're able to move on into the world. I understand that they do have a lot of help from their parents when making major purchases like cars and houses, but if they don't have that help, I just don't understand how they do it, because the cost of living in Taiwan is increasing a lot. It's almost on par with Japan, but their wages haven't increased. and so I don't understand how people can afford to live here. And I keep running into this issue all the time. I love to travel around Taiwan on my scooter, and I like to try and find cheap places to stay, and I can usually do it, but it's still pretty expensive. Here's a hotel, 3 stars in Taipei, for $2,900. That's not expensive, but it's on par with most hotels and cities, I would say, in the States. It's probably one of the biggest complaints I get from foreigners that visit Taiwan, is they always tell me how expensive it is. They're not really expecting it to be that much, and before they know it, they blow all their money on stuff. I did the same thing when I moved here from China because I was used to China being relatively cheap to live in, but I spent all my money really fast here in Taiwan. Now you can make the argument that it's worth it. The quality of life in Taiwan is pretty good and it's very convenient and easy to live here, but like I said, if the wages don't increase, then I just don't understand the higher cost of living. When you're dealing with things like finances, that means you're gonna have to deal with things like banking.
But I'm not gonna waste your time talking about that, because who wants to talk about banking?
Alan does. So go check out his video where I explain that banking is basically stuck in the 70s. It's the most annoying thing in the entire world.
I think that's one of the reasons why Taiwan isn't as big of a tourist country as it could be. I've mentioned this in a previous video, but it's true. People would rather spend their money on places like Thailand, Vietnam, cheaper Southeast Asian countries than coming here to Taiwan, where you might go to Kenting and spend way more money and see a lot less. Now, of course, you can live cheaply in Taiwan if you want to, if you eat the right food, and that is the next thing I hate about living in Taiwan.
Now, Taiwanese people are quite proud of their food, so I should preface this by saying that generally speaking, I am a fan of most Taiwanese foods. It's just that there's some flavor profiles and textures that I just haven't gotten used to yet. Like, for example, this is called damian geng. Now, most Taiwanese people don't actually know about this dish because you can only get it here in Taichung, but it's got this gelatinous, slimy texture to it that I just don't like. Or like mianqian has the same kind of thing. There's a lot of just soups and noodles that just don't really look all that appealing. They also eat a lot of lu wei and whatever the this is. And I mean, I just don't understand it because they do a lot of things like chicken well, they do pork well. I think if I saw this gelatinous stuff in a bowl, I'd go see a doctor. I can also respect that they don't waste any of the animals. They eat all of it. Feet, tongues, head, shoulders, knees, and toes. You name it, these animals don't stand a chance against the Taiwanese.
So obviously I'm not sugarcoating anything or overselling Taiwan, because while I do think it's important to talk about the good things about Taiwan when it's appropriate, I think it's not doing Taiwan a service when you oversell it or kiss ass or pai ma pi, because I think that Taiwanese people aren't stupid. They can see straight through that, and they're more than capable of seeing the good things about this country and maybe some of the things that need improving on. And one of my most favorite things about living here is the fact that I can talk to Taiwanese people about these things, and they're more than happy to have that conversation, unlike their more northern neighbors where they're overly nationalistic or overly defensive about their country and won't take any criticism. And I'm extremely happy that I can call Taiwan my home. I love living here. I support Taiwan. Taiwan, I'm rooting for you. Big thank you to making it all the way to the end of this video. As an extra thanks, I'll leave you with a bonus thing I hate about this country. Which doesn't really seem appropriate after I'm trying to, you know, rebound after the whole hate thing. But before that, stay positive, keep your stick on the ice. Please hit the subscribe button. It's really difficult to get sponsored with this type of video. It helps a lot. This next one isn't really like a complaint about Taiwan. It's just kind of more of an annoyance. And that's when I ride around and it's all the red lights that are here in the cities are really annoying. I like the fact that the red lights have a countdown on them, so you know how long you're going to be waiting. The only problem I have with them is just like how they can be 100 seconds long, and the fact that I know they're 100 seconds long makes me feel like I'm there for a long time. And the other issue too is just the fact that like none of them seem to be synchronized. So I'm riding along now, and this street's quite large, and so they might be synchronized, but a lot of the side streets, like one will turn red, the next one will turn green. It's just annoying, and it feels like you can never really get anywhere.
Hey Gloria, you're Taiwanese. What do you hate about living in Taiwan?